What if the next crash isn't a failure of the system, but proof that it's working exactly as designed? What if the headlines about stability, soft landings, and emergency tools are hiding something darker? Because look around, prices feel permanent, jobs feel temporary, debt follows you everywhere. And here's the uncomfortable question no one wants you asking. What if 2026 isn't the year the economy recovers, but the year it's permanently reset? What if inflation wasn't a mistake? What if debt wasn't mismanagement? What if uncertainty wasn't accidental? History tells us resets don't arrive with sirens. They arrive with reassurance. They come wrapped in calm voices saying, "Don't worry, we've handled this before." But every time that promise is made, the same institutions gain more power, and everyone else loses options. What if the pain you're feeling today, the shrinking savings, the rising rent, the fragile future, isn't a temporary phase, but the entry fee to a new system? Stay with me. Because once you see how this machine really works, you'll understand why 2026 is different from every crisis before it. Quick check-in. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your country in the comments. And subscribe for the unfiltered truth, because this warning only matters if you hear it before the reset locks in. Every major economic reset follows the same rhythm. First comes excess confidence, then easy credit, then speculation, then collapse, then emergency intervention. Let's rewind. In the late Roman Empire, currency debasement funded endless obligations. Coins contained less silver, prices rose, trust evaporated, jumped to the 1700s. France financed war and luxury with debt. Paper money promised prosperity. Inflation destroyed the middle class. Now Britain. By the early 1900s, the pound ruled global trade. Britain exported finance, not production. Debt expanded faster than reality. World War I exposed the illusion. By 1945, the empire was financially exhausted. The pattern isn't military defeat, it's financial overreach. Now let's move closer. 1929. The Roaring Twenties were built on leverage. Stocks bought on margin. Banks overextended. When the crash hit, governments didn't save people first, they saved the financial system. Banks consolidated, power centralized, rules rewritten. 1971. The U.S. closed the gold window. Money became pure belief. Debt became limitless. They called it progress. 2008. Mortgage-backed securities collapsed. Derivatives detonated. The global system froze. Trillions were created overnight. Banks survived. Ordinary people absorbed the damage. 2020. The world shut down. Supply chains snapped. Fear spread faster than logic. Central banks printed more money in months than in decades. Markets soared. Living costs exploded. Here's what history makes clear. Every reset claims to restore stability, but quietly rewires who controls the future. Each crisis doesn't decentralize power. It concentrates it. And now, as we approach 2026, every warning sign is flashing at once. Global debt is at record highs. Speculation has returned. Derivatives exposure is larger than ever. Trust is thinner than ever. History isn't repeating. It's accelerating. Up to now, this sounds like familiar territory. Too much debt, too much leverage, too much risk. But here's where the story turns. After 2008, global financial elites reached a conclusion. An uncontrolled collapse can never be allowed again. So they built something new. Not a law, not a treaty, not a democratic institution. They built a shadow rescue system, invisible to voters, activated only in crisis, and answerable to no election. This system lives inside two mechanisms most people never think about: derivatives and central bank liquidity swaps. When banks gamble and lose, derivatives explode. When dollar funding disappears, liquidity swaps activate. And here's the key. The entire global system runs on US dollars, but only one institution can create them. So when panic hits, foreign banks don't call their governments, they call the US Federal Reserve. Dollars appear, markets calm, the world breathes again, but nothing is free. Every rescue deepens dependence, every bailout tightens the leash. Now imagine this mechanism triggered not by one crisis, but by many at once. Debt stress, currency stress, bank stress. That's the setup heading into 2026. And the blueprint for what comes next already exists. The documents exist, the transactions exist, and when you see who authorized this structure, you won't believe the name. Let's dismantle the machine slowly. Modern finance no longer revolves around making things. It revolves around leveraging claims on money. Banks don't just lend, they trade risk. Loans become securities. Securities become derivatives. Derivatives become bets on bets. The size of this market is staggering. The global derivatives market is estimated at over $600 trillion in notional value, more than 6 times global GDP. This isn't wealth, it's obligation layered on illusion. And here's the critical detail. Roughly 80% of global derivatives are dollar denominated. That means when markets panic, everyone needs dollars at the same time. In 2008, European banks faced more than $1 trillion in dollar shortages. They couldn't print dollars. They couldn't borrow fast enough. So the Federal Reserve stepped in, quietly. Between 2008 and 2010, the Fed provided over $16 trillion in emergency liquidity, not just to U.S. banks, but to foreign banks. $16 trillion. No vote, no referendum, no public debate. That moment changed everything. It proved the Fed wasn't just America's central bank. It was the central bank of the world. Fast forward to 2020. Markets froze again. Within weeks, the Fed reopened swap lines, injecting hundreds of billions globally. Other central banks followed. Markets recovered. Asset prices soared. But the bill came later. Inflation surged. Savings lost value. Wages lagged behind costs. Global debt now exceeds $300 trillion, over 350% of global GDP. This creates moral hazard on a planetary scale. Banks take bigger risks because rescue is expected. Governments borrow endlessly because liquidity is guaranteed. Citizens pay through inflation and lost purchasing power. This is parasitic finance, a system that feeds on crisis. Now comes the next layer. Because central banks know liquidity alone isn't enough anymore. So they're building control infrastructure, digital currencies, programmable money, instant settlement, financial surveillance, not to replace cash overnight, but to manage behavior during emergencies. Spend here, not there. Freeze this account, unfreeze that one. The justification will always be the same: temporary, emergency, stability. But history shows us something chilling. Emergency powers never fully disappear. They become permanent quietly. The 2026 reset isn't a single event. It's a sequence. Debt stress triggers derivatives. Instability. Derivatives, instability triggers liquidity swaps. Liquidity swaps justify deeper control. Each step looks logical. Each step feels necessary, until freedom becomes conditional. This is the illusion of choice inside a managed system. And once it locks in, there's no reset button for the public. Here's the final warning. The 2026 economic reset won't look like collapse. It will look like relief. Markets will stabilize, banks will be saved, officials will declare success, but beneath the surface, something permanent will change. Control will centralize, dependence will deepen, options will shrink. The system doesn't fail loudly anymore. It succeeds quietly, by normalizing survival through permission. History teaches us the real danger isn't crisis, it's denial. Believing temporary fixes are permanent solutions, trusting institutions built on borrowed time. The speed today is faster, the leverage is higher, the reset will be deeper. And once it's installed, there is no vote to undo it. So ask yourself, honestly, are we wiser now, or just walking the same path in better suits? If this challenged you, share it. If it unsettled you, good. Subscribe for more unfiltered truth. Because the reset doesn't begin when they announce it. It begins when people stop questioning. And by then, it's already too late.